Alright, so VTubers have skyrocketed in popularity in the past few years, with them constantly gaining millions of new fans and even breaking into the mainstream media, with many events and collaborations. We've all heard of people like Gawr Gura, Vox Akuma, Houshou Marine, Iron Mouse, and Dokibird, who have all become somewhat household names in the past few years. But who were the first that eventually made every modern VTuber into who they are now? As I mentioned, people like Gawr Gura, Houshou Marine, and many other colleagues in Hololive have been dominating the VTuber industry in recent years. While not being the very first company to involve themselves in the VTuber industry, they definitely are the biggest and most famous. I'm sure we all know about Yago's dream of creating an idol agency similar to AKB48, but with VTubers. As we know today, Hololive fortunately became a massive success and set the industry standard for how VTuber agencies operate. But if you're not a Hololive fan, then you're definitely a Nijisanji fan. Nijisanji is the other big agency that had an equally big impact on the VTuber industry. A little after Cover Corporation launched their Hololive project, Ichikara Inc., now known as Anycolor, launched their VTuber live streaming project that would later adopt the name of Nijisanji. Nijisanji would pioneer the use of live 2D models, which would become the norm for most agency and indie VTubers alike. Hololive and Nijisanji are the most influential and some of the earliest VTuber groups, but they aren't the first. Kizuna Ai is the person that many consider to be the first VTuber, and depending on how you define the term VTuber, she could be the first. Kizuna Ai was actually the first one to popularize the term VTuber or virtual YouTuber. She debuted in 2016 with many of the characteristics that most VTubers today still follow, being primarily a live streamer and playing a character that has lore. Kizuna Ai is an idol who releases music and performs concerts, which has also inspired companies like the before mentioned Hololive and Nijisanji to have their members follow in her footsteps. She would gain immense popularity in Japan and overseas with her online activities like streaming and concerts, where she would basically become the poster girl for the VTubing industry as a whole. As influential and revolutionary as she was, I technically wouldn't consider Kizuna Ai as the definitive first VTuber. Pop quiz! What language are we speaking right now? That's right, the language of the fish and chips. So VTubers obviously originated in Japan for a Japanese audience, but the second biggest demographic of VTuber fans is English speakers, probably because it's the most spoken language in the world, but that's besides the point. VTubers weren't really a big thing in the West outside of the hardcore fanbase for them. That is, until Hololive released their first generation of Hololive English in 2020. They were actually so successful that one of their members, Gawr Gura, actually surpassed Kizuna Ai as the most subscribed VTuber in history less than a year after she debuted. And speaking of subscribers, make sure you subscribe to this channel and leave a like on this video while you're at it too. It really helps out the channel a lot. The massive success of Hololive English spread VTuber culture into the West, making it an international phenomenon. Now, as for the very first English-speaking VTuber that actually considered themselves as a VTuber, we actually have several worthy contenders. Firstly, we have Natsumi Moe and Comdust. These are two people that were part of the same team as Eveland, a creator that we'll get into later on in the video, and they debuted in 2018. Natsumi Moe was originally a character in Eveland's videos, who became a VTuber, and Comdust was originally a staff helping Eveland out. Next we have Mira Pink, who also debuted in 2018, and Safi Stars, who started out as a regular YouTuber in 2016, but debuted as a VTuber in 2018. Another person that I think could win the title is Deet. He's a French and English speaking VTuber, also associated with Eveland, who started at the beginning of 2018, in February with the video titled Becoming a Virtual YouTuber. I could be wrong, but he might be the only one in the section who referred to themselves as a VTuber, or in this case a virtual YouTuber, since the beginning of their content creation. For the last contender of the first English-speaking VTuber, we have Iron Mouse. You may be surprised to hear her name get mentioned here since she's still relevant nowadays, and arguably more than ever with her becoming the #1 Twitch channel of all times on several occasions. And that's not the #1 VTuber channel, it's the #1 Twitch channel overall. Even with all her well-deserved success nowadays, we can't forget that she was actually one of the first ever VTubers. Her debut date is kind of iffy, but most sources say it was around August 4th or 5th of 2017. Which was only a month after Hololive's first member, Tokino Sora. When she started streaming, she used a free model and didn't actually refer to herself as a VTuber in the beginning. It was only until after VTubers got big around 2019 to 2020 that she started using the term VTuber for herself. I think it's really up to you if you want to accept Iron Mouse as the answer of the first English-speaking VTuber based on your personal criteria, but for me she ticks most of the boxes of a modern standard VTuber, like using a live 2D model and having most of her content being live streams, even if she didn't refer to herself as a VTuber in the beginning. So now we know that the first person to call themselves a VTuber was Kizuna Ai, and on the English side it was Iron Mouse or Deep, but we can go even further back. There are people who did basically what modern VTubers do now, but just didn't label themselves as a VTuber or virtual YouTuber. The Den of Tools is a channel about reviewing tools and work equipment. I think? I'm not actually too sure. There's just way too much testosterone in these videos for me to compute what's going on. But you may be wondering why I'm bringing up a guy who talks about tools. Well, dear viewer, he's actually a VTuber. Or well, he was. On August 6, 2016, a few months before Kizuna Ai's debut, Jeff King, the person behind Den of Tools, would debut a 3D model. This character's name is Toolbear, and would serve as sort of a mascot for the Den of Tools channel. This model had some pretty good tracking, especially for the time. Sadly, over time, Toolbear would appear less and less frequently on the channel, with his last appearance being on June 5th, 2023. A few months after that, Jeff would make a video explaining the disappearance of Toolbear. He explained that he originally started using the bear model because it was just easier to have the bear on the screen, rather than making a whole set and worrying about his looks every time he recorded a video. The reasoning for Toolbear being retired from his channel is because the company that created the software that he used to run the Toolbear model saw Jeff's success and kept pestering him to pay them more money for business use of their software, despite him already owning a business license that clearly stated in the contract that he had every right to use their software. Eventually, the company released a new version of the software which he didn't really like, so he stuck to the old one. But over time, the old version stopped working, and the company wouldn't help him with it, so he just had to make the decision of retiring the bear. He also already wanted to retire the bear for a long time, since the company still owned the image of the bear, and he wouldn't be able to use it to sell merch or for any other commercial purposes. As for whether he considered himself a VTuber, I'd say he most likely didn't, considering this is the type of content he makes.
And today we're here to talk about the old WD-40, the tried and true, been around for years and years, and we're going to talk about some of the secrets of WD-40, some stuff that most of you probably don't know.
And this is the average VTuber content. Although he never advertised himself as a VTuber, he did heart comments on the first Toolbear video referring to him as the first VTuber. You know, I can just imagine this middle-aged dude getting comments on his years-old video about a completely unknown concept that everyone's talking about in the comments, and then he looks it up, and then he just sees this, leaving him completely confused as to why random commenters are grouping him in with big booba anime girls. When researching for VTubers who people consider to be the first, one of the names I came across was Eveland, and she has a lot of lore. So much so that I legitimately can't fit it all into this video, so I'll make it brief, and I might make a full video on her in the future. Eveland started out making videos on a channel called BitTranslate in 2014. I assume she was just regularly posting content between 2014 and 2016, where she would reach 20,000 subscribers. All the video on this channel before 2017 are deleted or privated, and the only thing we have from that time is her old tweets and a different channel called Otaku Moe from that same time, which still has its content from that era. In 2017, she launched a VTuber project on the BitTranslate channel called Mirai Akari, which would have the entire channel rebranded for the project. A couple years later in 2021, she started an entire VTuber group called Eveland Academy, which ultimately disbanded only a year later in 2022. In 2024, she got into a dilemma relating to a different VTuber agency she owned called H-Live. According to her, she was scammed by this businessman, which caused her mental health to spiral downwards, eventually leading to her posting her suicide note onto YouTube. Fortunately, she didn't go through with it, and she remains active online. Weatheroid Type A Irie started off as a weather presenter for the forecasting company Weather News and their live weather broadcast named SoLive24 in April of 2012. The reason for her creation stems from the interesting history of Japanese forecast stations hiring attractive women to host their broadcasts, hoping to attract more viewers. So they thought of a new idea. Why not have an anime girl? From what I can tell, she started off as just a PNG on the screen, but later that year, she revealed her 3D model. And in 2018, the Weatheroid Irie channel was created, which served as a place for her fans to view all her content in one place. Even 13 years later, she's still giving the weather forecast to all her fans. Ami Yamato is a virtual vlogger who first started posting YouTube videos in 2011. Her content mostly consists of vlogs and videos of her talking to the camera about various topics, which is pretty reminiscent of the content on YouTube at that time. Just by looking at how her model moves, I can assume that there's not actually any live tracking actually happening, but instead the model is animated in a separate stage of the production from the recording. There's not really too much info about who owns or runs the channel, and we don't even know if the channel is a project by someone, a group of people, or how much of Ami Yamato is a character, or if she's a real person sharing about herself that just simply doesn't want to show her face. Super Sonico is the mascot for a game company named Nitro Plus, who was introduced in October 2006. Over the years, Super Sonico has grown so popular that she branched out to being just more than a mascot, with her getting a manga series, songs, merchandise, and even her own TV anime series. In 2010, Nitro Plus would start occasionally posting videos of Sonico and her 3D model giving information on the Super Sonico franchise. And like the previous few people, there isn't really any live tracking involved. 7 years after her initial debut, Sonico would get her own YouTube channel in 2018, where she would have a fully rigged and motion tracked 3D model, and do more traditional VTuber activities like stream and create content, instead of just making small announcements. Unfortunately, this channel would only be active for 2 years, with its last activity in 2020. Now, personally, it's really hard for me to count her as a VTuber back in 2010, just because of how different her presence was compared to modern VTubers. To some, it might even be a stretch to call her a VTuber in those early days, considering all it was a person voicing over a 3D model. But her name does come up a lot when doing research for what people consider to be the first ever VTuber, so I thought it'd be important to at least mention her. And finally, our last contender for the first ever VTuber. I'll let you take a guess. It's someone you see all the time. That's right, Jesus Christ! No, I'm joking. But it was actually Super Mario. That's right, Super Mario from the Super Mario Bros. Maybe the first ever VTuber. In 1992, Nintendo released a game called Mario Teaches Typing, or Mario Teaches, well, typing. This has nothing to do with my original point, but when you open up the game, Mario just screams at you, and he doesn't even sound like Mario.
Welcome to Mario Teaches Typing!
But anyways, there was this floating Mario head when you get into the game, and it's kind of really unsettling. Later that year, the Summer International Consumers Electronics Show, also known as CES, took place, revealing things like what would be 1992's best-selling game, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, but it also debuted this, Real-Time Mario. Real-Time Mario is that creepy head from Mario Teaches Typing, and would be controlled by someone putting on all these pieces of equipment, and they would interact with the congoers in real time, as the name suggests. In later years, they would keep bringing this out at cons, and they actually got Charles Martinet, the voice of Mario, and plenty of other Mario characters, to play Real-Time Mario, which just made the experience much more immersive. As the years went on, Martinet would continue playing Real-Time Mario alongside some other characters, and the Mario model they used got less scary. And for some reason, they released a second Mario Teaches Typing, where Mario Teaches Typing 2. Okay, sorry, that was a bad joke. You made it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed, you can help out the channel by subscribing and leaving a like to show that you want more videos like this. And let me know in the comments who you consider to be the first VTuber. Anyways, thanks for watching.